EFL sports writer Tom Barclay joins me now to dive into what is something that we've said every week, actually, to be honest, when it comes to League One. I think this is a unique League One season, isn't it, Tom, where we've got just juggernauts of teams in there, and it's not as easy as they maybe would have expected, is it?
No. Hi, James. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, this season seems to be about as wide open as ever in League One. There's so much stiff competition, and as you mentioned, so many teams that have, for a lot of people, they think of them as sort of the Premier League teams of when they grew up or when they were younger. But obviously, they're not the same teams as they once were, and a lot of them are finding that just getting out of League One is nowhere near as easy as maybe some people might think it is.
Absolutely, Tom. And that's what we're going to dive into now. We're going to have a look at some of these teams because, as I said, some of these guys are playing each other. We'll show you the fixtures again a little bit later on. But we kind of want to, if you want a redemption arc, you've got to know, where you've been to move forward. Yeah. And what's fascinating here is you've got a lot of teams here, Tom, that are at different stages, I would say, of, the fall, let's say, and also the recovery. So we're going to dive into each of them one by one and then dive into the games a little bit further down the line in the show. So let's go along with the league table this season. And one team that their problems have been well documented through Netflix, and they've been in the division for a couple of seasons now, relegated from the Championship in 2018. Sunderland are the latest poster boy. I think there's a lot of poster boys, but I guess for them, probably the biggest surprise is being how long it's kind of taking them to bounce back up for a team that is, in terms of the attendances that they can bring together. You expected them to kind of bounce up, but they found it a lot harder than they expected when they went down to that Burton goal back in 2018. Changes in ownership, often that is the case with some of these teams when they go down, where it feels like it's not worked and they kind of need a rebrand and a new owner. And in Kirill Louis Dreyfus, as the youngest chairman, I think a lot of Sunderland fans would have been a little bit scared of that happening. But have you been impressed by the approach of Sunderland this season?
Yeah, there's a lot to take in there from that opening sort of gambit. But I think when you look at some of the other teams we're going to talk about who've been stuck in the lower divisions, if the goal was to get back to the Premier League for much longer than Sunderland have, it just sort of speaks to how difficult it is to turn around a situation when it only feels like it's going one way. Sunderland obviously fell straight through the Championship at an alarming rate, and now they've got into League One, and they found it's much more difficult to get out of it than they probably expected, given, as you say, the massive following they have, and the fact that they've spent a fair bit of money in that time. The likes of Will Grigg over the years, it didn't work. But as you say, Kirill Louis Dreyfus come in, the youngest chairman in the Football League, but he's shown some pretty mature thinking, particularly when it comes to sort of long-term strategy. Brought in a new sporting director, overhauled the academy, I believe. Brought in data analysts to sort of look at not just bringing in new players, as we often see, and there have been plenty of new faces for Lee Johnson this summer as well. But it's taking a sort of holistic approach to turning this, as you say, juggernaut around. And so far this season, with a manager who's shown he plays football the right way and often gets the best out of young players, as he showed at Bristol City and in other clubs before, it's been solid progress, I would say, so far this season.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's interesting, isn't it? I think that word maturity is something that we probably wouldn't have expected, but you're right. It's a calmer approach. It's certainly when it comes to the transfers, it seems a lot smarter, because Sunderland and a lot of these clubs, very, very attractive. I think you've seen it. We chatted with Sam Vokes recently, and I think people would have been surprised that he would have gone to a club like Wycombe. But I think that there are a lot of those players available if you can kind of go and get them. But Sunderland have gone with a sort of a younger approach, losing their main striker in Charlie Wyke. I think, again, people would have been nervous, but a couple of youngsters have come through this season in Callum Doyle and Dennis Kirkin from Spurs and Man City. And it makes sense, doesn't it? And it's shown when we look at the table at the moment. And look how they've got on in terms of sort of the goals. And I think they beat Wickham recently as well. I think we can show you some of the pictures from that. How have you been impressed with the performances on the pitch?
Again, they've been pretty solid. I mean, most games are pretty tight as well, so it's not like they're blowing teams away at all. But you mentioned losing Charlie Wyke, 31 goals last season in all competitions. That's a huge loss. But you got credit their sort of succession planning, because they brought in Ross Stewart in January from Scotland. He sort of played second fiddle to Charlie Wyke, but he's come in and replaced him seamlessly. Already scored a number of goals this season. Looks at a decent target man up front, and looks like he should be able to continue it. And then behind them, I mean, Aidan McGeady's probably the best player in the league, definitely from a technical point of view, and he seems to be in the mood at the moment, so that's going well. They've brought back Elliot Embleton, who they decided to loan out to, I think it was Blackpool last season, who obviously got promoted, and that was probably a poor decision on reflection, but he's come back into the team and is doing well there. And then, as you mentioned, I mean, Callum Doyle, this is a player that I'm hearing quite a lot about. Lee Johnson's got a good relationship with Manchester City, so I imagine that's probably where this particular move came about. He's only 17. He's a very strong young lad, like physically, but also brilliant on the ball. And speaking to some of the other guys who cover Sunderland, on a sort of weekly basis, it sounds like he has a genuine chance one day of making it right to the top. So 2-year loan there. It can only be great for his development, and purely from sort of Sunderland's point of view, he looks like such a prospect already, despite being so young, that he could actually genuinely help them in their ambition to get promoted this season. Okay,
let's have a bit of fun with this as we go along, because what I'd like to get from you, Tom, is this could be their year ranking. And so that if I give that a mark out of 10, Tom, for Sunderland first up, then what is out of 10 being this is definitely their year, what is your mark for them in terms of this being their year for Sunderland?
Well, I'm quite wary, James, of going sort of too hard too early, but you've got to fancy Sunderland, don't you?
I'm okay with that.
Bear in mind that since they got relegated to League One, they've had a few different managers, but they haven't ever really, when you look at their league position, all right, they haven't got promoted, but they've actually done pretty well, even if the season itself was deemed a failure and had all sort of different problems. So given how it sort of seems to be coming together off the pitch, the team looks very strong, the squad looks very strong. It really, top two. I know we're going to go very strong at the moment, but really automatic promotion should be the target. And given that they've started solidly but not spectacularly, you can probably presume that's likely to improve from there. So I'm not going to go 10, but I'm going to go 9. I think it'll be a big. I've got a great.
He's going 9. He's going 9, guys. I repeat, he's going 9.
Gone big already.
Bolton, we dropped down a little bit. I imagine these marks will probably go down a bit as we go down the table, but so be it. Bolton Wanderers, 8th in the league at the moment. There's been point deductions. There's been transfer embargoes since they went down back to back into League One, then into League Two, and it feels like the big change was yes, ownership with Football Ventures, but how much of this has to go down to Ian Evatt, because it feels like to me that he is a very unique manager for any football club.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose probably kind of like the antithesis of what we probably have in mind, particularly if you don't support Bolton, of kind of Bolton football, because I think most of us have Sam Allardyce in mind. Not to say that wasn't hugely successful, but it probably wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing type of play. But Ian Evatt is the opposite, really. It's pass, and pass some more, and it can be really, really entertaining to watch. He came in and back to Football Ventures. I mean, first of all, it's good to see the way they've steadied the ship, because every summer it felt like, particularly under the previous ownership, it was always a sort of Bolton in crisis problems, financial problems off the pitch. But that doesn't really seem to happen as much. But when Ian Evatt came in, obviously having done a great job at Barrow, it wasn't like results were clicking straight away, but he was given time to improve, and the team just flew in the second half of that League Two season. And what's quite exciting about this Bolton team, and perhaps part of the reason why they've had a good start compared to some of the other teams we're going to talk about who've had massive overhauls in their squad, so perhaps taking time to gel, is that a lot of their business was just signing players who were on loan and getting them done early. So there's actually a bit of stability there within the squad. and obviously the manager's been there and they've won promotion, that we're now seeing how a team that can win promotion from League Two with pretty much not far off the same squad of players can fare in League One. And so far it's going very well. I mean, if you can, I know Ipswich have had their problems, but if you can go and win 5-2 at Portman Road, I mean, that really does show you what the potential this team can have.
Yeah, and Ian Evatt was very bullish in the after the defeat to Rotherham. Actually, it was just one of those where it was set pieces that they felt they got undone by, but they felt like they had the better chances. And he revealed that the Rotherham assistant manager said that you're the best team we've played. So I think what I like about them, I agree with you. I think it's interesting. It really is a flick of a switch sometimes when you really need buy-in to play that way. And for people to believe in it, but once you get it, then there's a double bounce there if you want it, because there are a lot of good footballers in the Football League, and Josh Sheehan's a great example of that. A player that they got from Newport in the summer, and he's fitting brilliantly. Oladapo Afolayan, people get very angry if I didn't speak about him. I've noticed that in my live streams recently.
Yeah.
Searchovic as well. So a lot of players, it's exciting for them.
It certainly is.
Where are you on the feel-good rating with them then, Tom?
Oh, right. On the rating, I think promotion, I'm not saying it's unlikely, but it would be very impressive if they could kick on this far. I mean, it's not like we haven't seen that before, but I'd probably go more around a 5 for Bolton. They've had a very good start. They're actually, I know you love your statistics and your XG. They've got fantastic XG at the moment, 1.56 from best out of all these 6 teams we're talking about. And they've obviously scored a lot of goals. Yet at the same time, whether Owen Doyle at his age, 33, can consistently be the goal scorer across the whole of the season. Not to say he can't, but I think it's fair to sort of wonder if that's going to be sustainable throughout the season. But definitely brilliant start, and Afolayan, what a talent, and just gets fans off their seats. That's exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, and actually, maybe that touch of a lack of quality could just be the sign of a club behaving themselves and being sensible. So although it's a disappointment, it might actually be a blessing in disguise instead of trying to chase these things sometimes. Sheffield Wednesday, we moved down a little bit further, 13th in the league. But I looked a couple of weeks ago and I swear they were second. So it just shows you how much it can change. They lost. This is from the playoff final, the heady days. Probably the peak of the Chancery era.
I was there.
Am I right, Tom?
I remember it well. Yeah, I was there. I remember it well. I mean, I still say...
Is that you, Tom, there?
It's actually...
Wasn't you?
Yeah, no, it wasn't me. I remember being at the semi-final in particular, actually, at Hillsborough, where they beat Brighton 2-0, heavily fancied Brighton team managed by Chris Hughton. And that is without a doubt the best atmosphere and football match I've ever been to, at least domestically. Just absolutely bouncing Hillsborough is fantastic. And then in that game, I don't think there were kind of too many sort of criticisms, really. There was 1-0 was a wonder strike, I think, from Odiame. But yeah, as you say, that was kind of the peak of this Chancery reign. Carlos Carvalhal took him so close. But then probably after that, after Carlos left, and they had a few different managers, they kind of stuck with pretty much the same squad of players, give or take, for quite a few years. And whilst they were fantastic around that time at that level, maybe it went a little bit stale. And actually, it's interesting, this summer, since following relegation, a lot of those guys have moved on, the likes of Adam Reach. Barry Bannon's still there, and he's still an absolute talent. But Wednesday have brought in so many players. I mean, I know it's a regular occurrence, particularly sort of League One, League Two level of clubs overhauling their squads completely, particularly after relegation. But it really has been a massive summer of change in the dressing room. And perhaps that's another reason why we've seen a bit of inconsistency so far. They had a good start, but then I think it's 3 games without a win. And they're not really scoring any goals, 6 goals, I think, this season. Not conceding many either. Probably not the best team to watch, I imagine, in the division right now. But with so many options, it's probably going to take a little while for Darren Moore to gel this side. I just hope he gets sort of the time to do it and patience from the fans, because it just feels like it's one of those ones that's going to take a little while.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting with, again, this is one of those teams I feel like they are so attractive as being a big club, and they've kind of gone down the route where they've gone for names over how strong are they right now? I honestly can't answer how good Lee Gregory is anymore, or how good Saido Berahino is anymore. Lewis Wing alike. Shadipo, I think, is a good signing for League One. But so those make sense. And in Barry Bannon, you just saw him score a screamer there. There is quality there, and Gregory tapping one in, we know that's what he can do. It feels like, in terms of the stage of the journey of these different clubs, this is very early on for these guys, and it's going to be, is it all on Darren Moore to try and kind of find the chemistry? Because it's early days, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit, it's a lot on him to do it, but I mean, he had a pretty good spell at Doncaster before to suggest that he can do well at this level. But I think you're fair in your question marks, I suppose, over some of the players that have come in. Not to say that they can't recapture some of that amazing form. And I was just looking over Saido Berahino's stats, and we forget what a player he was, what a prospect he was. Yeah. We generally thought he was going to go on to be one of the top Premier League players. And under 21s for England, he's got 11 goals in 12 games. I mean, that's a fantastic record at that level. We obviously know it didn't work out. Got the move to Stoke, didn't score for all that time, and he moved away to Belgium. And I think I saw an interview with him the other day where he said that was, just what he needed. And to be fair, came in, scored a bullet header to begin with. So let's just see if he can stay fit. It could be one of those ones where a player that perhaps has been written off by others who still got it and just needed a fresh place to sort of clear his head and also mature a bit, because he was very young, and a lot of young players doesn't always happen for them for whatever reason, and then they get better the older they get. And he's clearly got a lot of qualities both on the ball and obviously with pace and his finishing, clearly from last week, that he could be a real signing. But I think it's fair to sort of look at that squad and be a bit not skeptical, but worry that there are quite a lot of variables in that aren't sure things. Yeah. But what is a sure thing in this division, particularly with the competition they're going at? So we'll find out.
True. There's a player in there, and we've seen it with Ravel Morrison recently. Yeah. That it can be done, and no doubt there's talent there. In this bizarre ratings thing where it's rating but ranking, but I've given you a number at the same time. How out of 10? How much are you feeling good about Sheffield Wednesday then?
6 maybe, because I got a lot of for the reasons we just mentioned. I just think it's turning around I guess not a sinking ship, but a ship that went down last season with a whole new squad, and that may take time, and maybe similar to Bolton in League Two last season, second half of the season could really kick on. But I guess it's really promising, if you're looking for sort of positives, how strong they are defensively at the moment. But they've really got to start opening teams up and scoring some more goals if they're going to pick up points.
Okay, guys in the chat, by the way, I want to know, as we've got 2 more teams to go, I want to know everyone's marks out of 10 in terms of this is our year, please. So get it in the chat. I'll have a little look, and get them in the comments if you're watching this after the live itself. Let's keep moving then. So 6 for them, 5 for Bolton. 10, what was it? 9 for Sunderland. Portsmouth. I mean, Portsmouth 2008 were lifting the FA Cup, and by 2012 they were dropping out of the Championship. Some pictures here from that day. Lots of upheaval here as well, and even in the summer as well. I guess first of all, in terms of the ownership of the club, Tom, but then also an element of stability with Kenny Jackett, but that was changed as well in the summer, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Portsmouth probably the ultimate example of sort of boom and bust. They winning the FA Cup. What a team that was! When you look back, you think Defoe and Crouch and Campbell and Distat. I mean, amazing. Lassana Diarra. I mean, wow, what a player he was. But obviously they obviously had their issues and went all the way down. A nice example of where fans taking over a club can really sort of stabilise it. That's what they did. But then eventually Michael Eisner, the Disney CEO, took over. And they've been pretty stable in League One, but obviously they've been looking to get out of it for quite a long time. And I think that's probably eventually why Kenny Jackett left the club, because essentially he didn't get them promoted. I mean, his style of play isn't for everyone, although it's being very successful at the moment at Leyton Orient, and has been in the past with other clubs too. And they've gone for the Cowleys, who actually historically, I mean, I remember watching the Cowleys Lincoln team in the Johnston Pate Trophy, if that's what it was called at the time. Playing, I think it was Shrewsbury, and Dean Henderson was in goal, obviously of now Man United in England. And I remember Matt Reed of of Lincoln, giving walloping Dean Henderson in the face with his elbow. So not to say that the Cowleys historically haven't had a slightly, a similarly kind of physical approach, but it seems like they're trying to go a different route. They obviously came in last season on a sort of till the end of the season. They've had their contracts extended. Two of the nicest guys in the lower leagues in football, having interviewed Danny a few times and Nicky as well. So far, it's actually a similar story to Sheffield Wednesday. They don't score many goals, but don't concede many either. And it's a matter of when the margins are that tight, when not going in your favour, which is basically what's been happening of late. Although obviously they scored that last-minute equaliser in the week, because otherwise it would have been 4 defeats in a row. Then it's always going to be a bit of an uphill battle. And with some of the talent they've got in their side, they will be obviously looking to be more ruthless and more comfortable, because without a doubt Portsmouth, regardless of their history in this division at the moment, they've got players that should give them a good chance of playoffs, I think.
Playoffs, okay. So currently they're in 15th in the league. Where are you when it comes out? Marks out of 10 in this bizarre thing that I will not leave now.
Just because I think they should be in the playoffs, or have the squad to maybe do it, like a lot of their young loanees as well, the likes of Gavin Bazunu, who's obviously came to everyone's attention against Ireland, saving Ronaldo's penalty. That's always going to do a lot for your profile. But he's someone who's very exciting. Went on loan to Rochdale from Man City, a bit like Rob Sanchez of Brighton, and is very highly rated within the Man City system. Anyway, he's one of quite a few players there that look quite exciting. But again, I do worry about where the goals are going to come from. And so if I had to put my hat on it, 6 as well, maybe 7. Let's just change it up from Sheffield Wednesday. 7.
Okay, gone with a 7. Optimistic for Portsmouth. You're right. Miguel Aziz, interesting player. Joe Morel as well. But yeah, it's the fine margins. We were chatting to Danny Cowley last week, and there's a video of that actually out right now if you want to check that one out on the League of 72 channel. And I mean, he's fantastic to chat to about the different aspects of the game, but he was saying himself that really is fine margins, and they just need to find a way to manage games a little bit better. Let's talk about Ipswich Town, who sort of were relegated in 2019. I think I always feel like there's a tax on the big teams where it's the cup final tax. The opposition come and play you, and it is their cup final. And I think that's what Ipswich have found both last season and this season in terms of the big changes that have been made. Marcus Evans still has a minority share, but there's a new group of people in town, and they're going with Paul Cook, and they're giving him his faith, and they're giving him a lot of players, aren't they, Tom?
Yeah. I like your analogy of the tax. It's definitely I think that's a good way of looking at it. Ipswich for so long, with the Championship mainstays, I think it was sort of 15 years. I mean, probably a lot of fans don't even remember their Premier League days, because they had the odd season. Obviously, had that wonderful season where I think they finished 6th and went to Europe and played Inter Milan. Great days with Marcus Stewart leading the line. Marcus Evans, after some early sort of heavy spending, sort of reined it in, and Mick McCarthy, I think, did an absolutely unbelievable job for a long time, and probably masked a few of the issues maybe at the club with some brilliant management. And eventually, when he went and Paul Lambert came in, it just didn't work, and obviously they dropped down. Eventually, Paul Cook's taken over with is a specialist of getting up from this division with Wigan. And he's just gone about changing the squad completely, like we've talked about with some of the other squads. But this is a new level. I mean, so many players have gone. A lot of players who've been there for a long time. Luke Chambers, Alan Judge has gone. A number of sort of stalwarts at the club have left, and a lot of the players they've brought in on paper look like really savvy signings at this level, having done lots of interesting things. I mean, obviously Macaulay Bonne is the one who's been the biggest positive so far with 5 goals, and looks really happy to be back in his sort of home environment again. But a number of the other players so far hasn't quite clicked yet. But that's not to say it won't, because the likes of Sam Morsey should be pretty good at this level. Christian Walton is a keeper at Brighton. They highly rate. He should add a lot at the back. And there's a few names like Shone Aluko. It'd be interesting to see if they can still do what they once did. But there are other players there who should really give them a lift. And with that amount of depth in the squad, I can't see it going on like it has done for so long. And if it does, you would expect changes to be made after such investment. But already we saw last weekend with that 1-0 win that perhaps could be signs of things turning.
Yeah, it did feel like they kind of just needed that first one. Let's be honest, cards on the table, terrible start. Absolutely terrible start. For it to take this long, the pressure was building, and it felt like it was too many new signings, and the sloppy goals. You know, we talk about chemistry a lot with football teams, and I think that feels like a big thing. You know, you use the cup final tax that I was talking about alongside the pressure that's going to come from bringing in all these players, and then the lack of chemistry from trying to figure out who your strikers are. You know, who's playing in behind them. So many players that will be expecting to start games there. The pressure was really on them, but they did get their first victory last week. And the Ipswich CEO, Mark Ashton, check this out, guys. This is amazing. He was, I think he went with this initially. So this is him. They've won the game. He's delighted. The fans go, give us a high five, and he is really up for it initially. But what I would say, Tom, and I don't know if you agree with me on this one, is that he's thinking about now. He's thinking, I should have stopped. I shouldn't have gone in. I should have walked away now. Now I've started, and I'm going to have to give. I'm not sure this is COVID friendly. Literally high-fiving every single fan that is in. I hope there was some anti-back knocking about after that, because that's just dangerous. That's just poor practice, Mark. Please don't do that again. With Ipswich, then, give us your mark out of 10.
Well, I just think a lot of they actually haven't played. I don't think they've played so terribly, just a lot of individual errors so far, and just watching some of those goals, I mean, some of the mistakes were pretty horrendous. So you've got to expect them to start, you know, cutting them out eventually. And with the quality of their squad, and the fact that it's such a long season in League One that lots of teams can have bad starts and turn it right around, I still think they've got a really good chance. So I don't want to say 8 because it has been a bad start and it might continue to be a bit tricky, and I'll probably look like an idiot. So I'm going to go 7.
Okay, go 7. Fair enough. And last but not least, of course, but they are struggling in 21st position. They got themselves a draw in the week against Gillingham. I think we've got some bits and pieces of that. Actually, let's just show you, first of all, them getting relegated. And it was with Lee Bowyer. They've kind of had those ups and downs, bounced up with them, then went down to the season. Leeds United were crowned champions. So double whammy for them. Chuck Sanike, of course, moved on to Birmingham, and obviously sad times, really. I'm bringing everyone down, aren't I, even just by showing them. But Lee Bowyer, he stuck with them, but went last year, and they've gone for Mr. Positivity to try and get them back up the divisions. And I think we all were expecting a little bit more. What's gone wrong at Charlton this season?
It's funny, isn't it? Because Nigel Adkins, when he came in last season, actually the team sort of picked up and they almost made the playoffs. So you were expecting them to kick on. They've made a lot of, again, another club that's made lots of new signings. And maybe that's not an issue, but like what you were alluding to before, just when you have such a big squad, is that always the best? And the other day, I think Nigel Adkins dropped about 6 of his players or rested them, and it was just literally due to the amount of players he had at his disposal. So we'll see how that pans out. Midfield's been a bit of an issue. He's brought in the likes of Harry Arter recently, and you think with his pedigree and what a player he was, hopefully he can start to help that out. But I mean, as we know, sometimes it doesn't, you know, just because you had a great career beforehand doesn't necessarily mean, you know, the older you get, it's going to happen straight away later. Jayden Stockley's been quite a key signing for them. He was obviously on loan last season, and I think Portsmouth actually tried to get him this year. And ironically, they're playing each other in the summer. Ironically, they're playing each other this weekend, but Charlton managed to convince him to sign. He's not the most prolific of strikers, but he is crucial to the way he brings other teams into play. And yeah, it's just a matter of cutting out the goals that they keep conceding. Hopefully, Jonathan Lecker, who's come in on loan, can start to add some more goals, particularly if he plays up top with Stockley. But yeah, not scoring. It's quite a simple statistics at the moment. They're not scoring enough goals and they're conceding way too many. And it felt like quite a big draw the other day against Gillingham, because obviously they went 1-0 up. If they'd lost that game, you did probably fear a bit for Nigel Adkins, because Charlton's definitely hopes this season were to get promoted. Definitely Thomas Sangard, who's a pretty ambitious owner from all accounts, very media friendly, and I'd probably be quite honest about how it's gone quite so far. But it's been a pretty dreadful start. So you did sort of slightly fear for him, but he got a point, and if he can build on that with a win at the weekend, then maybe things can turn around. Because Nigel Adkins has proven in his time at this level with Scunthorpe and Southampton that he knows his way around. So fingers crossed he can rekindle some of that magic.
Very true. Let's show you those goals from Gillingham against Charlton. It was a 1-1 draw at the end of it all, and it's one of those where Tom's headphones might have just gone. I don't know. Maybe we'll see if we can get him back. They went into the lead actually, and were a much better team in the first half. Sorry, Gillingham were a much better team in the first half, and it was one of those where Charlton were kind of playing on the break and got themselves that goal, but not to be in terms of getting the full victory. And Gillingham are a tricky team to play against. They actually didn't play Jayden Stockley in that game. They tried to go a different route because there was a feeling that they were sort of playing the ball a little bit too long. So difficult times for them. Is Tom okay? Is Tom still with us?
Yep. I can hear you. You can hear me.
He's still with us. Great. Good. Okay, so with Charlton then, just to finish off the rankings, because they're crucial, and I'm going to read out some of yours in a second. Charlton, is this their year? This is a heel turn. I'm waiting for a heel turn here.
Well, I guess I did say Ipswich still had a really good chance despite having a bad start. So maybe I've sort of boxed myself into a bit of a hole here, but I don't know. I think it could be tricky for Charlton, based on what I've seen so far. So I'll go probably more like a 5 for them. I think they may struggle to win promotion, but I think they'll still be okay.
Okay, a generous 5 it feels like at the moment, but you're right, they are right next to Ipswich. Clip this up, Charlton, Nigel Adkins, get it in the WhatsApp group, and give them that fuel they need to rise up the league. In terms of you guys, what you're thinking, Hills McStills, he's gone with Plymouth Argyle, not one of the options. 9 out of 10. Tacticality, Sunderland 8 out of 10. Bolton 4 out of 10. Sheffield Wednesday 6 out of 10. As I said earlier on, let me know in the comments. I'll have a little look myself, and let me know what your rankings are in terms of this is the year mark out of 10. Let's have a look at those fixtures then, because all these guys are playing each other this weekend. We haven't got time, I'm afraid, Tom, to dive into the games because we've been reminiscing and reviewing so much. But just to pick them out then, you've got Sunderland against Bolton Wanderers. Before that, on the second line there. Ipswich Town against Sheffield Wednesday. Huge game. Sunderland against Bolton Wanderers. Charlton Athletic against Portsmouth. Loads of big games up and down the country, but those ones we just wanted to focus on this week. And we'll see who can get the victories in the 3 points this week in League One. Fascinating season it's going to be in League One. Tom, thank you so much for spending a bit of time with us. Really appreciate it, mate. I hope you are, and thank you very much.
Thanks, James.
Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, every single Thursday, 4 p.m, I will be live on the League of 72 channel talking about all things EFL, looking at all 72 clubs. So if you want to join us for the exclusive access and, of course, watching some of your favourite goals from your team, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell.